back to me at the beginning of this quarter, I have another survey for you in this folder, and I'm going to try to get those out to you today. But if you did fill out one of those forms, and there was 52 that did, then I have a survey. And remember that out of the 52, I only got 41 back of the beginning surveys, but I don't know who you 41 are. So I'm going to give all 52 of you another survey, and I guess I'm telling you that if you didn't turn in the one before class, then you can throw this one away, or if you don't remember whether you turned it in before class or not, then do it anyway, and I'll compare the codes and see if you did one before. But remember that one part of this project was to do a before and after survey, and because what I'm trying to research is, does studying and does a more focused mindset on time management help us in our spirituality? That's part of the question that I'm asking, and I'm trying to research that and find some answers based upon pre and post surveys here as we're doing. So I'll be handing these out to you. I give you I'd love to have them back today, but that may not be fair. But as soon as possible, take a week or so if you need, but by next Sunday would be great to have all of them back. There's an envelope attached to the survey. You just put it in that envelope, give it back to me. The only thing I need on it is your code. And if you don't remember your code, then you have failed, okay? I don't know any other way to say it, because if you don't remember your code, this won't work. So that's why I stressed back in September, you had to remember that code, and so I hope you did. And I can tell you there was some pretty elaborate codes, so I hope you remember yours, and you're able to fill that back in. So that's the main thing. Be sure to put a code on it, because unless I have that, I have no way of using it. As I mentioned, this is our last class, and it's really just a continuation of last week as far as material. Just kind of used a couple of weeks here at the end just to give some final precautions, just to remind us of some things. A lot of this is stuff that we've already covered, but that I felt necessary and deemed necessary to go back and to review, or to make one last emphasis upon as we close this class. Let me say, as everybody's getting their outlines, let me say also that, Lord willing, next Sunday we'll begin the next quarter, and David Killen will be teaching out here, and he's got a very good topic, and I think, I know it'll be a great study, but I also want you guys that are in here, that have come in here, thanks to the generosity of Ted and Johnny and their classes coming in to make this combined. Those classes will resume next Sunday. And so one of the agreements was that if we all come together, then come time to go back, we would go back. So Ted and Johnny's classes in the annex and the back classroom will resume next Sunday morning. And so if you've been attending those classes, then I would encourage you to go back to those classes. Thank you for being here. And the teenagers, thank you. I just thought about them. And the teenage class with Denny, y'all will go back upstairs next Sunday as well. So thanks for being in here for this quarter. I hope something's been said that'll be helpful. And please help me out by going back to where you belong, okay? Or going back to where you were attending Bible class before this quarter started. On the back side of your sheet, just very quickly, there's a track there entitled, Don't Give Up. Don't ever give up. And it's not the whole track, it's just cuttings and clippings from the track. And you'll read that and you'll say, Rodney, this don't have anything to do with time. And to some degree, you're exactly right. But then to another degree, what I want you to get from this track is, I'm going to admit to you that when I started this class in September, I didn't know how to manage time. And I'm going to admit to you that perhaps today, the last Sunday in November, I'm not doing much better, okay? I've been reminded of a lot of things. I've had a lot of things brought to my attention. I have had some things re-emphasized that I already knew. But what I also realize is that to fix our time problems in a matter of 3 months may be a little over-ambitious, okay? I'm convinced that we are going to spend a lifetime trying to get a balance on time. And we may die at the end of life still not doing very well at it. But the point I'm trying to make with this track that it's entitled Don't Give Up, Don't Ever Give Up, is for you and I to say, and again, as you read that, you'll say, there's nothing about time mentioned in here, but there is a lot of elements in there about whatever you do, don't quit. So let's say in September, the first class out of the gate, you said, wow, man, I'm really doing poorly at this whole time thing. And let's say today that you Bible class is over and you think to yourself, man, I'm really doing poorly at time management. What I want you to understand more than anything is from this tract is don't get discouraged. Don't ever give up. Keep trying. It may be that you aren't managing time well right now, or it may be that you're spending time doing things that as you analyze them and look at them, they're just not what should be your priority, but for whatever reason they are. And so you're working on changing priorities. Now, realize that you didn't develop your priorities overnight, and changing them overnight is not likely to happen either. And so if we're going to have to do some priority shifts, it's going to take some time. And it may take a month, it may take 6 months, it may take 6 years. But don't ever give up. Keep working and striving to make what should be important, and making time for that. Especially in the areas we think back to the middle part of this class, the importance of holy time. Be sure that we are making time for holy time daily. And whatever that looks like, and whatever that involves in your life, make sure that is becoming more and more a priority. And though you may not find a lot of time right now, don't give up. Keep trying. It may be that right now in your life, all you've got daily is 5 or 10 minutes. Then use those 5 or 10 minutes wisely, effectively, encouraging for your spiritual life to build you up. And then it may be a year from now, 2 years from now, 10 years from now, you look up and you say, hey, I've got 30 minutes a day, or I've got an hour a day now, where I didn't have back then. Maybe you change jobs, maybe you retire, maybe you change shifts, and so you're in a different shift, second shift or third shift or something. And you look up and you say, it's not that you have more time, it's just maybe that something shifted in your life, and maybe the kids are grown now. And 10 years ago they were young and dependent and at home. And so as things change, don't ever give up. Keep looking for more and more opportunity, especially for spiritual time. Because here's what I'm convinced. I'm convinced that Rodney's going to spend a good bit of time on hobbies. And you can fill in the blank, whatever your hobbies are, and however you need to spend. Maybe hobbies is not a good word. Some people say, well, I don't have any hobbies. Well, my wife tells me I have too many hobbies. So maybe you're somewhere in the middle, right? let's remove the word hobbies and let me say that you're going to spend time doing what you want to do. Now that may be absolutely nothing, right? That may be what you enjoy doing, absolutely nothing. You're going to spend time doing that. And I'm convinced that as human beings, we are going to spend time doing what we want to do, at least to some small percentage on a daily, weekly basis in our lives. And so my focus is upon things that are going to take more effort, like family time and spiritual time with God. Because those things, I'm convinced, in my opinion, don't come naturally, as doing what I want to do does come pretty naturally, because we do live in the human flesh, right? And whatever you do, as a final precaution, how many times have we said this? But here it is, one last time. Understand that the problem with time is you don't know how much you have. We often say that with money, right? The problem with money is we don't know how much we have, or we don't have enough. Well, we could say the same with time, because we don't know how much we have, and it may be that we feel like we don't have enough. And I don't mean that by in terms of life, but I just mean that by day. We don't have enough time in the day to do what we need to do. We don't have enough time in the week. And what we are basing that on is the fact that we're going to have 168 of them, that is hours, and we don't even know that. That's not a guarantee. And so the psalmist makes it very clear in Psalm 39, Lord, help us to know that our end is near and that our days are measured. Help us to know what the end is and what the measure of our days are. Help us, remind us of how fleeting we are. In James chapter 4, I guess this is the third or fourth time this passage has come up in this study over the course of these 12 weeks. Psalm 90 and verse 12, so teach us to number our days, that we might get a heart of wisdom. The problem with time is that the amount is unknown. It is unpredictable. Life is fickle at best. Life is brief. Moments are momentary. We are here and we are passing. We are fleeting. We sing songs, I'm just passing through. And it amazes me as to how much I'm reminded that I am a sojourner. I'm an alien. I'm a stranger. And yet how deep I plant my roots on this earth. I'm amazed at how much I'm reminded that I'm just passing through. This world is not my home, and yet how invested I get in this world. And so God help me. God remind me. God open my eyes to see that all of this is but for a moment. It is passing. It is fleeting. It is changing. It will be gone. Don't ever forget the fact that decisions determine direction. Joshua 24 and verse 15, you know what the passage says. Joshua says, choose you this day. You got a choice to make. Who you going to follow? Well, our decisions may not be that every day, although I could make a case that they are. And every decision may not revolve around the decision of, are we going to follow God or not? Although I think I can make a case that most of them do. But the reality of it is that when we start to understand and realize that every decision we make determines which direction we're going. Decisions determine direction. And maybe you aren't like me, but maybe you are, and you've gone in the wrong direction on an occasion or two. You ever gotten off the interstate to get gas or something, and you get back on the interstate going the way you came? No, ain't none of y'all ever done that. No. Y'all better than that, right? But what do you learn in terms of direction? What you learn very quickly is, as you start to analyze, is, hey, we just saw this a while ago, right? We just passed by this. If you get to looking at the sun a little bit, if it's up, you recognize, hey, we're supposed to be going east and we're going west. Something ain't right here, or north to south. And what you learn very quickly is that we're in the wrong direction. We're going the wrong direction. And what you do is you take the next exit, you go up and you cross over that road, and you come down on the other side and you head back in the right direction. What's my point? My point is that though we have all gone the wrong direction, what we love about directions is that they can be changed. We can change our direction. But now notice number 3 here. Direction determines destiny. If you stay on that direction long enough, you will end up in the wrong place. You cannot take the wrong directions and end up in the right place. You cannot follow the wrong road and end up in the right destination. And thus the case is Jesus made it very clear in Matthew 7. There are 2 directions, there are 2 roads, there are 2 destinations. And so here's what happens. Decisions determine direction. Now, you go in the wrong direction. We've all made bad decisions, I'm assuming. Maybe you're not like me and you've never made a bad decision. But I've made some bad decisions in my life, and they've put me on the wrong direction. Now, thankfully, I stand here having recognized I was headed the wrong way. And I got off that road, and I took the next exit, and I went up, and I turned around, and I headed back the other way. You see, that was a decision, wasn't it? I decided I was headed in the wrong direction. I had made a poor decision. So now I'm going to make another decision to get headed back in the right direction so that my destiny, because direction determines destiny, so that I can get that turned around, headed the right way before I end up somewhere I don't want to be. And so when it comes to time, realize that every day is filled with decisions. Time management decisions. And they affect and determine our direction, where we're headed spiritually, where we're headed physically, where we're headed emotionally, where we're headed secularly, where we're headed socially. All of those things are determined. Where we're headed economically. All those decisions are being made based on time. And they're determining direction. And if the direction's good, then the destiny will be good. Where we end up, the destination will be okay. But if the direction is not good, then we need to recognize that directions lead to destinations, and we need to get on a different road quickly by making some different decisions. And so I give you 3 things here, and then I get down to the conclusion thought that I wanted us to discuss today a little bit that I introduced last week. And here's what we're determining. I'm going to give you the answer before I ask the question. You know what the question is if you were here last Sunday. If you can read the bottom of your page, you know what the question is now. But here's the 3 possibilities for answers. And it all involves who's in control. Who's in control? Is it going to be me? Is it going to be men? Or is it going to be the Messiah? There's your 3 options. I don't know of any other one. In other words, in terms of control of my time, is it personal? Meaning, is it me that I'm concerned with? Or is it public? Meaning, I'm letting men or women, you understand, but I needed an M, okay? So men, am I letting others, maybe that's a better way to say it. Am I letting others control who I am and what I do and how I spend my time? Or is it, number 3, is it the case that I am looking to the Prince, that is the Messiah, to be in control of me? And there's evidence from Scripture where all 3 are possible. Even potential and examples are given. I love what Jesus said in Revelation 3 and verse 20. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. You got a decision to make here. You got a decision on how to answer this question. It's about time, and Jesus is saying, I'm standing outside the door, and I'm knocking. The question is for us, and it always is, and it is for all of us, how are we, or are we going to let Jesus come in the door when it comes to time? And the only way you can answer that question is to answer the question, who is in control? Who is in control? Is it me? Is it men? Or is it the Messiah? And so with those answers in mind, here's the question. If I only had a year to live, how would I spend it? What would I do? What would change for you? I'm asking you to get personal here, and I realize that many of you aren't going to answer because it is personal. What would you do? How would you change? How would you change what you're doing right now? Easier question? All right, I'll give you an easier one. What if you only had a month to live? What would you do? Okay, maybe it ain't easier. Let me give you an easier one. What if you only had a week to live? What would you do? What would you change? What would be important then? Keep waving that fan over there, you're going to get the answer, okay? Because it's catching my attention. And the questions ain't getting nothing but easier. Yes, sir. Huge priority for a father of young children, right? He thought it was going to all in. One of the main focuses that I would have is, I'm telling you what David said for those of you who didn't hear, is I would be interested in getting some spiritual mentors together to make sure that my children were kept on the spiritual track that I wanted them to be on. even in my absence. And I'm not going to put David on the spot, and I don't want him to feel that way, so I'm prefacing it with that. But there's a lot of other young fathers in the room. I mean young in the sense of having young children, let me be clear. A lot of other fathers in the room that have young children still at home. And so my question is this, and I'm not asking you to answer necessarily, but I am asking you to consider how much of our thinking goes into that right now. Like how often does that cross my mind now? As I asked the question, and so, let's say, something, I don't know what it would be, but let's say the doctor did walk in and say, you got a week to live. That's be something pretty terrible, wouldn't it? If you didn't know it before then that you were, But what thoughts would go through your mind that haven't previously? Maybe that's a thought that young fathers of young children have from time to time. And maybe this change in circumstances, for whatever reason, would heighten your awareness. I just gave you what I would consider to be my answer. And so I'll ask this question. What areas would your awareness be raised in if you knew that you only had a set time to live? David's given us one. Be the spirituality of his children. What would yours be? What area of life? Yes, ma'am. Marion makes perhaps the conclusion to the whole class in her statements, and where I had hoped all this would go eventually. And she says that, and I think she's exactly right. And so now that we've made it very personal, I'll make it very impersonal, okay? Because Marion has said exactly right, that we're all very similar, and our struggles are very similar in nature. And so it makes it very hard to deal with this on a personal level, because the reality of it is that while we understand Christianity, and I'm adding to what Marion said here now, but while we understand Christianity is an open lifestyle, And while we understand that you and I are supposed to be here for each other spiritually, we're supposed to have each other's back spiritually, we're supposed to be supporting and encouraging and building each other up. What I also recognize is that I tend to be very personal with my personal life. And sometimes I question what your interests are and what your motives are, even though I'm convinced they're supposed to be godly and holy, right? But it is hard, and this is where Marion started her comment. It is hard for us to, well, it's just hard for us to admit who we are. But let's just put it like it is. It's just hard for us to admit who we are, and the struggles that we face, and then we almost get defensive about it a little bit if we're not careful. I'm thinking about an occasion in my own life very recently. Maybe you have one or two. But then Marion goes on to say, obviously, we all have a set number of days. That's the point, right? You may not have. I mean, it'd be great to, what if I had a year to live? What would I do? Would I go on vacation? Where would I go on vacation? If I had a year to live, how many times would I go to church in that year? How important would reading my Bible be? You know, if I only had a year to live, how often would I be with my family? You know, would that matter? If I only had a year to live, you know, how often would I go to Mississippi? You know, as compared to how often I go now. Would I make some more trips down there, you know, than I do now? You know, those things are okay, fair enough. We could what ifs all day long, right? If I had a year to live. Well, the reality of it is that I may not even have a year, huh? I mean, I'm assuming that I would have 12 months, and I don't know that I would have 12 months. But to sit down and analyze what I would do differently, what areas of my life would be heightened in awareness. Those are the key words for me, heightened awareness. What is it that if a doctor walked in tomorrow and said to me, Rodney, you only have X amount of time to live? Of course, I could look at him and say, well, Doc, I'm glad you think that based on your medical knowledge, but the reality of it is I'm not promised tomorrow, and neither are you. But what in my life would raise in awareness that's not very high on my radar right now? And one of the things that Marion mentioned is those that are lost. We've got them all around us, right? We all have them. We all have people in our lives who are not children of God. And so what would we say? And how would we say it? And what would we do to beg? She used the word beg. What would we do to beg of them to be right with the Lord? And then she ended by saying, so now why didn't I do that yesterday? See, when it all boils down to it, every minute of every day is priceless. And when you and I waste one, we have wasted something we can never get back. And it may just be the only one that pauses. And what do I mean by that? There is coming a moment in your life where you will hit the pause button. Right now we're on play, and some of you say, no, I ain't on play. I'm on fast forward. Well, you may be on fast forward, but the time's coming when you're going to hit pause. What's that moment going to look like, and how did you spend the one right before it? Huh? Time management. Who's in control? That's what we're analyzing. I pray this class has been a blessing to you. Please, if you're willing to fill out a survey, get that back to me quickly. And next Sunday, Lord willing, all the classes will resume as scheduled.